polish.
磨く、洗練させる。
The marble statues were polished until they were smooth. Embrace.
受け入れる、包容する、包含する。
Many countries embrace bilingualism as an intellectual and economic asset. Compose.
構成する、創作する、鎮静する。
The committee was composed of 6 legal experts. Imitate.
真似る、模造する。
Video games may make children imitate improper behavior. Yield.
もたらす、産出する、譲る、屈する。
Research on language acquisition has yielded many important findings. Exhibit.
展示する、感情などを表す。
The art gallery will exhibit some of Picasso's paintings. Impress.
感動させる、印象を与える。
The photo artist was quite impressed with the youth culture. Overwhelm.
圧倒する、打ちのめす。
Our soccer team was overwhelmed by the energy and skill of the visiting team. Interrupt.
中断させる、邪魔をする。
Our conversation was interrupted several times by incoming calls. Endure.
耐える、存続する。
Lucy could endure poverty, but she could not endure loneliness. Confront.
立ち向かう、立ちはだかる。
We have to confront the urgent problem of global warming. Consult.
相談する、参照する。
It is necessary to consult a specialist in data analysis. Bump. Bump into.
で、偶然出会う。ぶつかる、ぶつける。
On my way downtown, I bumped into an old friend. Dispute.
異議を唱える、議論する。
The football player disputed the judgment of the referee. Negotiate.
交渉する、取り決める。
The Japanese company wishes to negotiate with its Arab customers. Justify.
正当化する、
Ignorance of a law does not justify our breaking it. Resolve.
解決する、決意する、議決する。
The president went to Europe to resolve economic problems. Reverse.
逆転させる、反対にする。
The new principal tried to reverse the school's traditional attitude of putting sporting before academic success. Convert.
変える、交換する。
Our objective is to convert waste material to fuel. Impose.
課す、押し付ける。
Costa Rica imposed a water tax on major water users. Govern.
支配する、統治する。
Social norms govern the way that people behave within a society. Esteem.
尊敬する、みなす。
He is highly esteemed as a mathematical genius. Assist.
援助する、手伝う。
Developed countries need to assist the developing world to progress. Rescue.
救う、
If you call me, I'll send someone out to rescue you. Entertain.
楽しませる、もてなす。
Adults often use songs to entertain children. Ruin.
ダメにする、破滅させる、滅亡する。
The food in the freezer was ruined because of the power outage. Bury.
埋める、埋葬する、隠す。
Only a fraction of Tokyo's electric cables are buried beneath the streets. Oh.
借りがある、何々のおかげである。
I owe you 800 yen for yesterday's lunch. Chew.
噛む、
Japanese chew almost 0.3 kilograms of gum per person each year. Bend.
曲げる、屈服させる、曲がる。
I've hurt my right elbow so badly that I can't bend it. Quote.
引用する、引き合いに出す。
He quoted an old Japanese proverb to support his idea. Classify.
分類する、機密扱いにする。
Scientists classify animals according to whether they have a backbone. Seal.
密閉する、封をする。
In the middle of winter, homes are sealed tight. Arrest.
逮捕する、止める、注意を引く。
I hear that the bank robbers have been arrested. Substitute.
代わりに使う、代理をする。
You can substitute tofu for meat in this recipe. Retain.
保持する、覚えている。
The film star managed to retain his youthful good looks until well into middle age. Restore.
回復させる、修復する。
Taking a nap is one good way to restore one's strength. Float.
浮かぶ、漂う、浮かべる。
Some sea animals die from eating plastic bags that are floating in the sea. Leap.
飛ぶ、さっと動く、急上昇する。
I leapt in the car and drove to the hospital. Blossom.
花が咲く、発展する。
In summer, leaves reach full size and the first flowers blossom. Merit.
利点、功績、進化。
Traveling during the rainy season has various merits. Faculty.
能力、機能、学部、教授陣。
One aim of education is to develop children's reasoning faculties. Charm.
魅力、お守り。
The charm of travel lies in its new experiences. Nutrition.
栄養、栄養の摂取。
Being obese often results from unbalanced nutrition. Beverage.
飲み物、飲料。
The custom of drinking tea as a beverage began in Southeast Asia. Recipe.
調理法、レシピ、手順。
In bread making, it is not essential to follow the recipe exactly. Molecule.
分子、微粒子、
Each ozone molecule bears 3 atoms of oxygen. Ecology.
生態学、生態系、環境保護。
A fundamental principle of ecology is that everything is connected to everything. Ethics.
倫理、道徳、
There is growing public concern about medical ethics. Mankind.
人類、
Environmental destruction threatens the future of mankind itself. Nationality.
国籍、国民、国民性、
Regardless of nationality, anyone can become rich in this society. Pension.
年金、
Many old people have a hard time surviving on their pensions alone. Scheme.
計画、体系、陰謀、
This rental bicycle scheme is aimed at easing traffic congestion. Haven.
避難所、保護区、港、
Their aim was to provide a safe haven for abandoned pets. Formation.
形成、構成物、隊列、
Television has a large influence upon the formation of children's views of the world. Skeleton.
骨格、骨組み、
The human skeleton is made up of more than 200 bones. Core.
革新、新、
A desire for more social justice lay at the core of his political philosophy. Stem.
茎、幹、
Trees have a single woody stem from which branches grow. Span.
期間、範囲、
It is said that smoking shortens a person's lifespan. Limitation.
制限、限界、
There needs to be some limitation to what students can wear to school. Obstacle.
障害、障害物、
Self-consciousness can be an obstacle to learning language. Province.
州、県、地方、分野、
In Canada, most speakers of French live in the province of Quebec. Galaxy.
星雲、銀河、
You can tell how fast a galaxy is moving by the light it gives out. Sensation.
感覚、大評判、
After the accident, he lost all sensation in his right hand. Sympathy.
同情、共感、
People all over the world felt great sympathy for the trapped miners. Pity.
哀れみ、残念なこと、
I feel pity for today's children whose only form of entertainment is TV. Tragedy.
悲劇、悲劇的な事件、
Most Italian operas seem to be a combination of love and tragedy. Divorce.
離婚、分離、
According to the latest survey, 1 in 5 marriages ends in divorce. Theft.
窃盗、窃盗罪、
He was sent to prison after he was found guilty of committing a series of thefts at his workplace. Panic.
狼狽、パニック、
He looked at me with an expression that showed a kind of panic. Retreat.
後退、退却、引退、
The government's new policy represents a retreat from its earlier radical plans. Jail.
刑務所、拘置所、
The judge gave him the option of paying a fine or going to jail. Blade.
刃、プロペラなどの羽、草などの刃、
He found it difficult to shave with such a blunt razor blade. Stroke.
脳卒中、打つこと、一撃、
Smoking is a major cause of heart disease, lung cancer, and stroke. Clue.
手がかり、パズルのヒント、
Historical research may give us clues to many questions we have. Queue.
順番を待つ列、
There were a lot of girls waiting in a queue in front of the store. Enterprise.
企業、事業、新種の気象、
The city asked 25 big enterprises to cooperate with its campaign to reduce air pollution. Fortune.
財産、幸運、運命、
He made a fortune by taking out a patent on a new way to manufacture license plates. Stable.
安定した、動じない、
Fair trade guarantees coffee farmers a more stable life. Steady.
着実な、安定した、
As the proverb goes, slow but steady wins the race. Mature.
成熟した、熟した、
I think I'm mature enough to take care of myself. Eager.
熱望して、熱心な、
They believe it is not cool to appear eager to get ahead. Reluctant.
気が進まない、嫌がる、
American people are not so reluctant to change their residences often. Humorous.
ひょうきんな、ユーモアのある、
He is a humorous young man who likes to joke around. Fluent.
流暢な、
Sachiko is widely regarded as fluent in English. Prime.
最も重要な、第一の、
The prime responsibility of governments is to provide safe infrastructure. Precious.
貴重な、高価な、
Nothing is more precious than time, but nothing is less valued. Artistic.
芸術的な、
In artistic terms, the film is rated as revolutionary. Ethnic.
民族の、人種の、民族特有の、
This custom can be seen among some ethnic minorities in the U.S. Primitive.
原始的な、未開の、
Future generations will look back on modern society as too primitive. Federal.
連邦の、 連邦政府の
The United States is a federal republic that consists of 50 states. Royal.
王の
This royal palace was built in the early 19th century. Mutual.
相互の共通の
We build society on the basis of mutual communication. Apparent.
明白な一見何々らしい
The improvement in her health was apparent to everyone. Casual.
何気ない形式ばらない
His casual remark caused us a lot of trouble. Slight.
わずかな取るに足らない
I have a slight sense of guilt every time I tell a white lie. Mere.
単なるほんの
Language is not a mere instrument of communication. Spare.
余分の予備の
She practices yoga in her spare time. Abstract.
抽象的な
Children don't regard abstract paintings as difficult. Ultimate.
究極の
What do you think your ultimate goal in life is?
venture 危険を冒して進む思い切ってする
Human beings ventured into unknown territory in search of food. Chase.
追跡する追求する
The police car chased the escaping criminals at full speed. Migrate.
移住する鳥などが渡る
Many people migrate to cities looking for better job opportunities. Flee.
逃げる
Many victims of the hurricane fled to Texas. Swing.
揺らす振る揺れる一変する
I swung my bat as hard as I could. Hesitate.
躊躇する
Many Japanese students hesitate to stand out among their classmates. Postpone.
延期する
If it rains tomorrow, the gardening lesson will be postponed. Withdraw.
引き出す撤回する撤退する
I need to withdraw some more money later. Grip.
握る捉える
He told me to grip the dynamometer with all my might. Grab.
掴む横領する急いで食べる
His wife grabbed his arm and told him to calm down. Grasp.
把握するしっかり握る
By the age of 7, a child will have grasped the essentials of language. Gaze.
じっと見る
She gazed at the model airplanes hanging from the ceiling. Scan.
注意深く調べるざっと見る
He always carefully scans the classified ads of the English newspaper. Forecast.
予想する予報する
In 1984, an ozone hole was discovered just as the scientists forecasted. Register.
記録する登録する示す
These young men have been registered as unemployed for more than 2 years. Advocate.
主張する擁護する
Many legal experts advocate the abolition of the death penalty. Trigger.
引き起こす
The movement of plates triggers earthquakes and thrusts up mountain ranges. Cultivate.
養う栽培する
The philosopher argued that reading novels cultivates empathy for others. Qualify.
資格を与える資格がある
Paying the fee doesn't automatically qualify you for membership. Interfere.
干渉する介入する邪魔する
No state should interfere with the internal affairs of another state. Clog.
詰まらせる阻害する詰まる
Oil and dead skin cells may clog the skin's pores. Distract.
注意などをそらす
Passengers must not distract the driver from driving at any time. Forbid.
禁じる
Laws forbid cigarette companies from advertising their products on TV. Deceive.
騙す
People are liable to be deceived when they feel lonely. Overlook.
見落とす多めに見る見渡す
We must have overlooked a major error in our project. Dismiss.
退ける解雇する
We can't just dismiss the issues raised in these films as trivial. Spoil.
台無しにする甘やかすダメになる
Overcooking will spoil the taste of the chicken. Yawn.
あくびをする
We are likely to yawn when we see other people do so. Greet.
挨拶する迎える
It's natural to greet friends with a smile and a wave. Nod.
うなずくうとうとする
He nodded to me as if to say, okay, obey.
従う服従する
Most people obey the unwritten rules of their society instinctively. Undergo.
経験する受ける耐える
England was the first country to undergo an industrial revolution. Rear.
育てる
He has reared his children with loving care. Heal.
治す治る
He devoted his life to healing the injuries of wounded soldiers. Cite.
引き合いに出す引用する
She cited the case of a man experiencing chest pains. Modify.
修正する緩和する
We thought it absolutely necessary to modify our scheme. Exaggerate.
誇張する強調する
We can hardly exaggerate the danger of young people's smoking. Burst.
破裂する。突然始める。
The stock market was like a big balloon getting ready to burst. Thrill.
ゾクゾクさせる。ワクワクする。
Jane was thrilled to hear that her application had been accepted. Exceed.
超える。勝る。
By 2020, the country's demand for water will exceed supply. Privilege.
特権。特典。
The residents of the apartment have the privilege of parking in this garage. Liberty.
自由。解放。気まま。
I grew up with a liberty that now seems almost impossible. Prosperity.
繁栄。
People in those days used to put great emphasis on material prosperity. Heritage.
遺産。
Museums should show both new pop art and old national heritage. Congress.
議会。会議。
Congress is trying to pass a law that provides for gun control. Parliament.
議会。国会議員団。
The British Parliament voted to stop the hunting of foxes completely. Infrastructure.
基盤。経済基盤。インフラ。
The infrastructure required for high-level technology is in short supply. Dimension.
側面。曲面。次元。寸法。
Many religious practices have a moral dimension. Portion.
部分。一人前。割り当て。
Those benefits are enjoyed by only a small portion of the population. Supplement.
栄養補助剤。補足。
Using supplements properly can lead to a balanced diet. Appetite.
食欲。欲求。
Not getting enough sleep may affect hormones that influence appetite. Temper.
気質。気性。機嫌。感触。
He has a calm temper, but his brother gets angry easily. Fancy.
好み。空想。思いつき。
People in the town took a fancy to the young woman. Illusion.
錯覚。思い違い。幻想。
Isn't the free will that we seem to experience just an illusion? Fatigue.
疲労。
Fatigue from overworking can cause a wide range of illnesses. Stress.
ストレス。圧力。強調。
Stress has become a trivial concept without a clear set of physical symptoms. Hazard.
危険。危険要素。偶然。
Many people still smoke despite the well-known health hazards of cigarettes. Infection.
感染。感染症。
When a population is weakened by lack of nutrition, infections are more likely to spread. Famine.
飢饉。ひどい不足。
Many Irish immigrants came to the U.S. because of the famine in the 1800s. Chaos.
混沌。大混乱。
The country fell into social chaos after it was defeated in the war. Distress.
苦悩。苦痛。困窮。
The war caused a lot of distress to both sides. Shame.
恥。残念なこと。
Don't you understand your stupid behavior brings shame on your family? Cattle.
牛。
Cattle produce a kind of gas that causes global warming. Predator.
捕食動物。略奪者。
Monkeys have specific alarm calls for different predators. Wilderness.
荒野。
Before immigrants arrived, the land was a wilderness. Shade.
影。日陰。明暗の度合い。日よけ。
They decided to rest in the shade of a large tree. Monk.
修道士。僧。
The Buddhist monks have learned to live with nature. Priest.
聖職者。
Darwin hoped to become a Church of England priest in a country town. Funeral.
葬式。
For occasions such as funerals, flowers are often required. Transition.
移り変わり。過渡期。
Mozart lived in a time of transition to a modern industrial society. Circulation.
循環。流通。発行部数。
Doing aerobics is a great way to improve one's blood circulation. Adolescent.
青年。
Obesity among adolescents is now several times more common than 10 years ago. Equation.
方程式。同一詞。
I wonder how long it will take to solve all these equations. Patent.
特許。特許権。特許品。
Patents do not necessarily guarantee commercial success. Metaphor.
隠喩。比喩。
English poems usually contain many metaphors and similes. Narrative.
物語。話。
The field worker must display culture in a narrative. Consent.
同意。承諾。
They are now old enough to get married without their parents' consent. Dignity.
尊厳。威厳。
All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Relevant.
関係がある。適切な。
He only read the chapters of the book relevant to his essay topic. Adequate.
十分な。 適切な
Adequate protein is available even from a vegetarian diet. Genuine.
本物の
The audience can usually tell whether the speaker's smiles are genuine or not. Prompt.
迅速な
Thank you for giving prompt attention to this matter. Intimate.
親密な密接な
The boys have been on intimate terms since their childhood. Alert.
警戒して敏速な
The police warned older people to be alert to the danger of fraud. Conservative.
保守的な保守党の控えめな
He was conservative concerning the issue of the gender gap. Indifferent.
無関心な
It's a shame that many young people in Japan are indifferent to politics. Alien.
異質の外国の
Giving a tip was a habit alien to most Japanese people. Random.
無作為の手当たり次第の
The subjects of the experiment were chosen by random selection. Subtle.
微妙な希薄な
There is a subtle difference in color between these two pairs of shoes. Moderate.
適度な穏健な
Moderate exercise can reduce the risk of diabetes. Multiple.
多様な
A certain psychologist argues that we all have multiple intelligences. Polar.
極地の電極の
If the polar ice melts, islands may disappear and coral may die. Arctic.
北極の
Arctic sea ice is necessary for polar bears to live. Acid.
酸性の酸っぱい辛辣な
The effects of acid rain are devastating to many forms of life. Cosmetic.
化粧の美容の
The manufacturer guarantees that its cosmetic products are good for 3 years. Extinct.
絶滅した廃止された
Since records began, 784 species have been declared extinct. Spiritual.
精神の霊的な
The priest provided spiritual guidance to all the members of his church. Meaningful.
意味のある
The disaster victims said the president's visit had been a meaningful gesture. Mechanical.
機械の機械的な
The new bridge was designed by mechanical engineers at the local university. Dynamic.
活動的な動的な
The president of this company is well known for his dynamic personality.
Boost.
高める増加させる
TV commercials are a good way to boost popular interest in new products. Reinforce.
強化する
Human security reinforces state security but does not replace it. Accumulate.
蓄積する積もる
Knowledge and understanding are accumulated little by little. Nurture.
育む養成する
People use language to establish, nurture, and develop personal relationships. Accustom.
慣れさせる
People are already accustomed to ATMs and self-service gas pumps. Correspond.
一致する文通する
His explanation corresponded exactly to the evidence we had. Assign.
配属する割り当てる
They assigned employees and robots to work in different locations. Regulate.
規制する調整する
In some countries, new drug research is regulated by the government. Violate.
侵害する規則を破る
No one should be allowed to violate the human rights of others. Irritate.
イライラさせる
The telephone answering machine irritates many people. Insult.
侮辱する
Tracy said that never before had she been so insulted. Diminish.
減らす減少する
The food supply has been diminished by years of drought. Exclude.
除外する
In the future, analog books may be excluded from libraries. Rob.
金品を奪う
If she had been more careful, she would not have been robbed of her purse. Deprive.
権利などを奪う
They deprived him of his liberty. Deposit.
置く預ける堆積させる
The girl picked up the bag and deposited it on the floor. Twist.
ねじるひねる歪曲する
Tony twisted her feet deeper into the sand. Blend.
混ぜる調和させる
Brazil started to blend ethanol with gasoline long ago. Mount.
着手する乗る乗せる増える
One group mounted a campaign against drug use. Pitch.
投げる
He could pitch a fastball at the speed of 160 kilometers per hour. Cast.
投じる役を当てる
His behavior forced us to cast doubt on his way of thinking. Dump.
投棄する落とす
The company was accused of illegally dumping waste from its factory. Anticipate.
予期する
We need to anticipate the effect our words could have. Assess.
評価する査定する
Today, many universities ask students to assess the courses they take. Pronounce.
宣言する発音する
At the wedding ceremony, the priest pronounced Tom and Barbara husband and wife. Spell.
綴る何々という語になる
Spell world backward, the doctor said. Portray.
描く
演じる、
This book portrays life during the war vividly. Astonish.
驚かす、
Nothing astonishes me so much as my uncle's performance of card tricks. Emit.
光、音などを出す、
Electric cars emit no carbon dioxide. Cough.
咳をする、
The baby coughed and gave a loud cry. Wander.
歩き回る、それる、はぐれる、
They wandered through the forest searching for food. Drift.
漂う、さまよう、押し流す、
As we swam towards the boat, it drifted farther off. Cease.
やめる、終わる、
Great statesmen like him may cease to exist. Underlie.
根底にある、
Truth, beauty, and morality should underlie all education. Constitute.
構成する、
Women constitute the majority of the student body. Resort.
好ましくない手段に訴える、
Some people tend to resort to drinking alcohol to relieve their stress. Decorate.
装飾する、
We can decorate the room with balloons if you wish. Reform.
改革する、
The country took steps to reform its bankruptcy law. Conquer.
征服する、克服する、
In 1066, the French conquered England. Persist.
固執する、続く、
If students persist in talking, they will be asked to leave the classroom. Incentive.
動機、動機づけ、報奨金、
People need a clear incentive to reduce plastic bag use. Intuition.
直感、直感力、
Our intuition is by no means a perfect guide. Impulse.
衝動、刺激、
On an impulse, he decided to run away from home. Fantasy.
空想、幻想、幻想的作品、
My dreams are different now, less based on fantasy and more on reality. Destiny.
運命、
Do the stars or our blood types determine our behavior and destiny? Virtue.
美徳、長所、効能、
The Japanese learned that vagueness in discussion is a virtue. Compliment.
賛辞、表敬、
That's the nicest compliment anyone has ever paid me. Anniversary.
記念日、
The school celebrated the 40th anniversary of its founding last year. Hive.
ミツバチの巣、群衆、
Certain bees tell other bees in the hive where a source of food is located. Nursery.
託児所、苗床、
After logging in, parents can watch live video from the nursery. Dormitory.
寮、
When students go to university, some live in a dormitory. Gallery.
美術館、画廊、回廊、
The gallery agreed to hold an exhibition of his paintings. Mill.
製造工場、製粉所、粉引き機、
The forests have been cut to provide charcoal for steel mills. Output.
生産、生産高、出力、排出、排出量、
A farm uses solar energy to increase its output. Joint.
関節、接合、接合部、
My grandmother often complains of pains in her knee joints. Phase.
段階、面、
They have only completed the first phase of their project. Particle.
粒子、微粒子、ほんのわずか、
Light could be regarded as a stream of tiny particles. Column.
コラム、欄、円柱、
Chekhov had a long career as a journalist writing humorous columns. Margin.
余白、差、利座や、
He wrote down some notes in the margin of the page. Crack.
割れ目、鋭い音、
Through cracks in windows, wind blew dust into houses. Mess.
散らかった状態、混乱状態、
The children made a mess in the living room. Spectator.
観客、
There are two kinds of participants in life, spectators and players. Prey.
獲物、犠牲者、
They spent their lives as wanderers in search of prey. Irrigation.
灌漑、
Today, India mainly uses groundwater for irrigation. Fluid.
流動体、液体、
Solids have definite shapes while fluids do not. Prairie.
大草原、
A herd of buffalo is grazing on a winter prairie. Estate.
財産、私有地、
Estate agents sometimes use photographs of kitchens to sell properties. Plot.
小説などの筋、陰謀、
The plot development of Japanese folktales reflects the concept of nature in Japan. Realm.
領域、領土、
Anything is possible in the realm of pure science. Deadline.
締め切り、
The professor is unwilling to extend the deadline on his term paper. Poll.
世論調査、投票、投票数、
Unlike an opinion poll, an exit poll asks who the voter actually voted for. Census.
国勢調査、交通調査、
The first U.S. census, taken in 1790, registered 3.9 million people. Controversy.
論争、
There is much controversy with regards to this decision. Combat.
戦闘、対立、
People in danger, such as pilots in combat, can be remarkably composed. Consensus.
相違、意見の一致、
Their consensus was that the trip should be put off for a while. Treaty.
条約、 協定、
Each country that agrees to the treaty must obey the treaty's conditions. Remedy.
治療、治療法、治療薬、解決法、
The use of traditional remedies is increasing in advanced countries. Triumph.
勝利、勝利の喜び、偉業、
Supporters of the team celebrated its triumph in the championship. Competent.
有能な、適任の、満足できる、
The president felt lucky to have such a competent secretary. Brilliant.
素晴らしい、才能にあふれた、きらめく、
I agree that this country has a brilliant future. Sensible.
賢明な、実用的な、顕著な、
Giving away large sums of money is not always a sensible strategy. Generous.
寛大な、気前の良い、豊富な、
The losing candidate made a generous speech in which he praised his rival. Brave.
勇敢な、見事な、
It was brave of him to take such a risk. Optimistic.
楽観的な、
Financial institutions should not adopt too optimistic an outlook. Passive.
受動的な、消極的な、
Infants are passive receivers of stimulation. Harsh.
厳しい、ざらついた、
Harsh words are exchanged. Feelings are hurt. Ties are severed. Ugly.
醜い、険悪な、
That kind of narrow nationalism is really ugly. Sensory.
感覚の、
Too much inactivity can subject babies to a kind of sensory deprivation. Oral.
口頭の、
Ari made us listen to Supreme Court oral arguments. Awkward.
気まずい、ぎこちない、面倒な、
It was an awkward situation to say the least. Neutral.
中立の、はっきりしない、
The use of sexually neutral language has become a legal requirement. Vague.
漠然とした、
It can be argued that the concept of Asia is quite vague. Urgent.
緊急の、
Global warming is an urgent issue for us to tackle. Inevitable.
避けられない、
It's inevitable that our children will experience injustice in their lives. Concrete.
具体的な、有形の、
By a concrete goal, I mean a specific or definite plan. Abundant.
豊富な、
Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. Sacred.
神聖な、宗教的な、
The Native Americans consider this area sacred. Prominent.
卓越した、目立つ、
Several prominent studies supported the need to increase the nation's birth rate. Dense.
密集した、密度の高い、霧などが濃い、
CT scanners are better for looking at dense tissue like bones. Profound.
重大な、深い、難解な、
Friendship clearly has a profound psychological effect.
tackle 取り組む、話をつける。The world came together in order to tackle the hunger problem. Dedicate 捧げる、検定する。He dedicates himself to one mission only, maximize profit. Dare あえて、思い切って何々する。Dan didn't dare to argue with his wife about the matter. Accelerate 加速する、促進する。This climate change seems to have accelerated human evolution. Transmit 伝える、送る。The school principal transmitted the ministry's warning to all of the teachers. Strain 負担をかける、緊張させる。越す The country's resources had been strained by the war effort. Tempt 引きつける、何々する気にさせる。Restaurants tempt us with food that would be difficult to prepare at home. Amuse 面白がらせる、楽しませる。You'll be amused to read about such ingenious devices. Disgust ムカつかせる、愛想をつかせる。He was so disgusted that he refused to talk. Cheat 騙す、不正をする。Mrs. Lester was angry that Pamela had cheated her. Confine 限定する、通例受け身系で閉じ込められる。They confined their efforts to trying to make the wounded feel more comfortable. Conceal 隠す、秘密にする。Tears will flow in spite of our efforts to conceal them. Forgive 許す、免除する。I couldn't forgive him for what he had done. Discard 捨てる、解雇する。Biodiesel is made from waste oil which used to be discarded. Convict 有罪を宣告する。There isn't enough evidence to convict him. Commute 通勤、通学する。Most people in the company would rather not commute by motorbike. Whisper ささやく。One of them leaned over and whispered in the other's ear. Fade 薄れる、衰える。The fashion gradually faded with men, but not with women. Starve 飢える、渇望する、飢えさせる。Nobody has ever actually starved to death in the region. Vanish 消える。The brightly colored parrots spread their wings and the beautiful colors vanished. Drain 流出させる、流れ出る。Hold the bottle upside down to drain out any remaining liquid. Dip 浸す、突っ込む、下がる。 When eating biscuits, it is important to dip them in your tea first. Crush.
押しつぶす、弾圧する。
The tremendous pressure of the water might crush an unprotected diver. Explode.
爆発する、急増する、論破する。
If the bomb had exploded, many civilians would have suffered injury. Terrify.
怖がらせる、脅かす。
The director's horror movies had terrified generations of moviegoers. Exploit.
活用する、搾取する。
The writer argues that society is not exploiting women's abilities fully enough. Elect.
選出する、
They elected Mike captain of the baseball team. Equip.
備え付ける、装備する。
Only a few Japanese households are equipped with solar panels. Fulfill.
実現させる、果たす、満たす。
She wanted her son to fulfill all his dreams. Log. Log on.
で、ログオンする、記録する。
She logged on to the internet and began typing her message for help. Inherit.
受け継ぐ、引き継ぐ。
People sometimes inherit stocks and shares. Submit.
提出する。
Submit oneself.
で、従う。屈服する。
The application for that job must be submitted by the 25th of May. Renew.
更新する。再生する。
They wanted to have their licenses renewed without any trouble. Reproduce.
複製する。再生する。繁殖する。
They are trying to reproduce the older original book. Flourish.
繁栄する。繁茂する。振りかざす。
There is a natural human capacity to flourish under the most difficult circumstances. Thrive.
繁栄する。成功する。繁茂する。
The local economy began to thrive after the new factory was built. Spill.
こぼす。こぼれる。
She spilled some tea carelessly on the keyboard of her computer. Scatter.
まき散らす。飛散する。
The factory scattered dense brown smoke across the sky. Sprawl.
不規則に広がる。
In a free and democratic society, towns and cities tend to sprawl. Prevail.
普及している。支配的である。打ち勝つ。
Butter and cheese prevailed among dairy products because they kept better. Intellect.
知性。知識人。
The concepts that govern our thoughts are not just matters of the intellect. Courtesy.
礼儀正しさ。行為。優遇。
Many Asians don't include door holding in their notions of courtesy. Posture.
姿勢。心構え。
A bad posture when young can lead to back problems in later years. Sociology.
社会学。
Studying sociology cannot be just a routine process of acquiring knowledge. Motive.
動機。
He said his motive in writing the novel had been to draw attention to social injustice. Cue.
合図。手がかり。
Hand gestures are one of the nonverbal cues we use. Utility.
公共事業。実用性。
Some experts expect utility companies to get more energy from hydroelectric power. Chore.
雑用。日課。嫌な仕事。
Household chores will be easily handled by a robot. Cereal.
穀物。シリアル。
The ideal diet would consist of cereals and beans. Fiber.
繊維。繊維質。本質。精神力。
Foods which are high in fiber prevent some disorders of the bowel. Intake.
摂取量。受け入れ数。
Japanese people should reduce their saturated fat intake. Scent.
香り。香水。気配。
In China, tea is sometimes combined with the scent from various flowers. Flavor.
風味。特色。
Used in small amounts, this herb will improve the flavor of meat dishes. Mixture.
混合。混合物。
The place smelled of a mixture of beer and tobacco. Ratio.
比率。
The ratio of applicants to places at the university had fallen to 3 to 1. Counterpart.
相当するもの。人。
American students have a longer summer vacation than their Japanese counterparts. Patch.
小区画の土地。次。貼り薬。
She took her shoes and socks off and walked into a nettle patch. Flock.
群れ。群衆。
We rarely see large flocks of birds flying overhead in summertime. Pedestrian.
歩行者。
A bicycle being ridden on a sidewalk is a menace to pedestrians. Librarian.
司書。図書館員。
The librarian recommended this book as a reference. Draft.
下書き。為替手形。隙間風。
I have just finished writing the first draft of my essay. Formula.
方法。公式。製法。
Harry was relieved that a logical formula existed to solve his conflict. Commodity.
商品、有用なもの、
They viewed the land as a source of commodities. Asset.
資産、価値のあるもの、利点、
Money is one of the most convenient assets to store. Currency.
通貨、普及、
They use prepaid phone cards as a form of electronic currency. Tide.
潮、潮の干満、動向、
When the tide recedes, these organisms re-emerge. Abortion.
妊娠中絶、
Birth control, abortion, alcoholism, and suicide are now children's issues. Toll.
損害、損害の程度、死者数、通行量、
Stress-related illnesses like heart disease are taking a heavy toll. Penalty.
罰、刑罰、罰金、
The penalty for cell phone use while driving can be traffic accidents. Deforestation.
森林伐採、
Large-scale deforestation can lead to floods and drought. Microbe.
細菌、微生物、
Nearly all milk is pasteurized to kill off disease-causing microbes. Outbreak.
発生、勃発、
They want to find ways to protect against an outbreak of avian flu. Epidemic.
流行り病、蔓延、
Epidemics usually start in areas of large population. Syndrome.
症候群、何々現象、
People with metabolic syndrome are likely to suffer from health problems. Outlet.
直売店、はけ口、コンセント、
In factory outlets, you can buy luxury brand products at cheap prices. Perfume.
香水、香料、
Some world-famous perfumes are made in Oman. Reception.
歓迎会、受付、受領、
The reception is scheduled to last for 3 hours. Recipient.
受け取る人、臓器などの非提供者、
To be the recipient of affection is a powerful cause of happiness. Keen.
熱心な、鋭敏な、激しい、
Most of the students are quite keen on studying English. Decent.
そこそこの、きちんとした、上品な、
Few people can make a decent living in such towns. Mild.
穏やかな、軽い、
The climate of the South Pacific is milder than that of Europe. Humble.
謙虚な、質素な、身分が低い、
To the end of his life, Thomas remained a very humble man. Noble.
高貴な、堂々とした、
He says he comes of a noble family. Selfish.
利己的な、
People are often too selfish to think about the future. Cruel.
残酷な、厳しい、
Sophia felt deeply wounded by his cruel remarks. Ridiculous.
馬鹿げた、法外な、
We don't intend to take up such a ridiculous proposal at the meeting. Deaf.
耳が聞こえない、
Most people think that fish are deaf, but they are not. Grateful.
感謝している、
I am truly grateful to have survived my hard adolescence. Elaborate.
入念な、凝った、
Japan is famous for its elaborate wrapping of presents. Rough.
荒い、大まかな、乱暴な、
Yellow sand can cause rough skin, allergic reactions, and asthma attacks. Bitter.
苦い、厳しい、辛辣な、怒りっぽい、
This tea tastes more bitter than coffee. Radical.
急進的な、根本的な、
Her opinion was very radical and stimulated discussions. Collective.
集団の、共同の、
The view that choice is essential to collective welfare seems convincing. Exotic.
外来の、異国風の、
In the Middle Ages, wealthy people kept exotic animals in their gardens. Steep.
傾斜が急な、急激な、法外な、
The slope was so steep that I could barely make it to the top. Shallow.
浅い、船舶な、
An infant can drown in water as shallow as a few inches. Parallel.
平行の、類似した、
In Japan, we lay our chopsticks on the table parallel to the table's edge. Probable.
十分にありそうな、
It is probable that the temperature will reach 30 degrees Celsius today. Absolute.
絶対的な、
A car is an absolute necessity if you live in the countryside. Aesthetic.
美的な、美学の、
We usually choose our favorite varieties of flowers on aesthetic grounds.